The PAW Patrol has been against many villains and impressive opponents, but just who's the greatest of them all? Well, I'll be ranking and reviewing every one of them to answer that. We'll be picking back up from where we had left off last time. Here's our tier list so far. We'll be following the same criteria with a few exceptions. I'd also like to add that I'll be leaving out some of the less notable and fleshed out antagonists like McSquidly, Frank, etc. Now let's get started. First up, there's Sid Swashbuckled Pirate. First appearing in Season 4, he's made returns almost every season since. He's heavily characterized by his greed, with it being his motivation to snatch all the items and objects that he does. He's also pretty skilled at putting together precise plans to do just that. Especially with the assistance of his first mate RB, Sid is frequently successful with his thieving endeavors. However, his greed has also led to his downfall, with the PAW Patrol often taking advantage of it to fool him or manifest in his defeat in some other way. Regarding his personality, besides being greedy, he can also be somewhat sly and cool at times, but he's also shown to be a bit dramatic and intense. While this may be annoying at times, it also brings many amusing and entertaining moments. He's also very compassionate and appreciative of his sidekick, even more so when compared to some other villains. Overall, I'll be placing him in B tier. Next up, we have Barbie. As I just said, he is Sid's first-rate first mate. While he's the right-hand pup to a villain, RB isn't very villainous himself. Any act of villainy that he does is most likely him loyally carrying out the command of Sid's rather than something of his own. However, in Pup Save the Meerkats, he is shown to potentially have a bit of a dastardly side. There, he successfully tricked the pack of meerkats into believing he was one of them so they could help him take a bunch of magical seeds. On one hand, he never meant any wrong by this, and Sid was still his motivation for doing this, but on the other, the act itself is still fairly morally dubious. When it comes to his personality, as we've covered, he's loyal and willing to do questionable things for his master, but he can also be a very sweet and warm-hearted pup, as well as a bit of a nervous and anxious one. Considering his character as a whole across the various seasons, I think we'll go at the top of C tier. Now we have the royal pooch herself, Sweetie. She was PAW Patrol's first pup villain, debuting in Season 4's Mission Paw Quest for the Crown. She has one ultimate goal in mind, and that's to become the Queen of Barkenberg. Concerning the abilities she's got on her paws, Sweetie has the pup pack with a claw similar to Rocky and a vacuum snatcher, both perfect for stealing things. Typically, the main object she thieves is the Crown of Barkenberg, but this can also be used for other things she may desire. She has a vehicle as well. It's a roadster, very good for high-speed getaways through the city, but it can also transform into a copter, which is sometimes even better. Also, her role as the royal pup comes in handy, as she knows all of the secrets of the castle, which she makes the utmost use of. Though the most powerful item she possesses may be Busby, her squeaky toy. He has control over various parts of the castle, including the lights throughout the building's doors and windows, and more. This has allowed Sweetie to trick and fool many as to carry out her plans. Speaking of, she's also quite good at doing just that. Her schemes often go fairly swimmingly, and even when the PAW Patrol arrive, she's able to work surprisingly quick on the fly, making rather efficient pivots. Also, another thing that works in her favor is her conniving disposition. She's not afraid to be relentless to get what she wants. She's shown to feel unafraid of making connections with others only to betray them not long after. She almost seems to be unfeeling, having trapped not one but two beings alone in the castle walls with no intentions of them ever being found or freed. However, she's not completely heartless, as she's still displayed much care for Busby and the princess. Though, while she has been shown to lighten up on her villainous side in a handful of episodes, that's usually only because she's either helping with something that isn't affecting of or in relation to her goals, or she goes back to her evil ways not long after. She only seems to be interested in doing any wicked acts if they're on her path to the throne. But overall, I enjoyed this cheeky pooch quite a lot. With the combination of classic villain energy and lots of useful items and knowledge in her possession, that makes her an S-tier villain in my eyes. Then there's Claude, the former Knight of Barkenberg who debuted as a part of the Rescue Knight sub-series. Regarding his capabilities, he could be considered decently weak there. He can be fairly fairly clever at times, occasionally having success with his plans, though he also has had more overall failures. He's even shown to surprise himself when an idea of his works, but more often than not he'll end up getting himself into trouble that he didn't intend to. Also, most of the schemes he's involved in are planned by the Duke of Flappington, so Claw's ability to create strategies of his own is questionable, not to mention that he fails to control Spark, the dragon which he deems his steed. Personality-wise, I like him. To put it simply, he's a silly little guy. His main intent is to be Barkenberg's greatest knight, which isn't too malicious compared to other villains' goals. He also seems to have an excess of confidence, but it may not be genuine, seeing as he does still shock himself sometimes. While I do enjoy him quite a lot as a character, judging him by his villainy, he'll be going in C tier. And if you've enjoyed so far, Sky would like it if you'd like the video and subscribe. Here we've got the Duke of Flappington. He's the star villain, a jet to the rescue. Initially, he's shown to be a charming and charismatic fellow, but as his villainous side is revealed, we also see him as cunning and confident, successfully making connections and even conning others into working with him. He's willing to be absolutely relentless to get what he wants, and maybe even more so when he doesn't. The Duke's also excellent at coming up with plans, scheming up grand ways to snatch himself Barkenberg's throne. However, his confidence often turns to cockiness. He'll ignore flaws in his plans and not stay fully aware of what's going on around him, typically leading to a failure. Also, while he is equipped with both his Eagle Jet as well as his Eagle sidekick John Claude, I don't think he makes as good of a use of them as he could. But overall, besides getting sucked into his confidence, I think he's got a pretty well fit personality for a villain, though he's just not fitted with all the abilities to complete his endeavors. With that, he'll go in B tier. Now we have Butch and Reuben, Humdinger's goons from the first Future film. As they're pretty similar, I'll be reviewing them together. Regarding their acts, they don't do much outside of assisting the mayor and carrying out his orders, though the most impressive thing they've completed is probably catch and chase. However, they are shown to be easily fooled. Like when dognapping Liberty, she appeared suspiciously encouraging of it, because obviously that led to Trace being freed, but they completely ignored that and just credited it to them getting more skilled at dognapping. This ties in with their personalities. Each one is very full of himself, which sometimes ends up with unprofessional squabbles, which then lead to ignorance of doing their job efficiently or at all. While they don't perform too well as a twosome, things run a lot more smoothly when they're simply following Humdinger's commands. Overall, they'll both be another addition to B tier. Then there's Cody Gizmody, the primary antagonist of all Paws on Deck. She's known for inventing many high-tech creations like her robot LED, as well as her hover car, which we see actually can transform and grow into whole other units. But her most incredible product may be her relocator, which transports buildings and beings wherever. We actually saw Harold Humdinger do this previously, but he had the advantage of mighty powers, whereas Cody created it off of presumably just her own ingenuity. Her inventing powers don't rely on possessing a piece of the mighty meteor, meaning they're available to her at all times. A great ability to have against the pups. However, she still does have her flaws. She's quite easily frustrated and annoyed, which is what ultimately led to her downfall. When the pups intentionally teased her to irritate her to the point where she chases them, she ended up doing just that. She left the relocator under LED's protection, but it was distracted from that task after Rocky simply asked the question with a lengthy answer. We see similarly panicked and spontaneous behavior from her later on, which ultimately leads to her fall. She has amazing abilities at the ready, but she simply can stand against the PAW Patrol's effortless teamwork. While she may have had a poor display, I still imagine her capabilities are strong enough to get her a place in A tier. Here we have Moby. He debuted as a part of Aqua Pups and served as the main antagonist for that sub-series. When it comes to his capabilities, he can whip up some very impressive products, ones that challenge the PAW Patrol's quality. He made his own pup pack with artificial tentacles and a vehicle he's named the Moby Mobile, completely out of what he found on Junk Island. Even before gaining his land pup legs, we saw him with a pair of shell phones that he made, which also seemed to almost be professional grade. Outside of his inventor skills, he's also been able to take advantage of situations to get something he desires fairly well. He also can be a rather sneaky and stealthy pup. Regarding his composure, he's quite a grumpy fella, finding all the merpups' joyful celebrations and such annoying. That does seem like something pretty plausible fare and not exactly villainous, but how he goes about it is. He actively tries to get the events and such cancelled for his own satisfaction, and has tried to rid the merpups of Puplantis. Not to mention how he actually seems to take pleasure in the unhappiness of the merpups, being delighted to see the frowns upon their faces and having stated that he'd like to cause the worst day ever for them. Honestly, his wickedness rivals Humdinger. While he's got an unpleasant disposition, he still is presented in somewhat of an endearing and amusing way, at least to me. Overall, he'll go in high B tier. Now we've got Boomer, a monster trucker and the main antagonist of the Rescue Wheels sub-series. His primary goal is to garner fans that will give him the attention he craves. He frequently tries to do stunts to get people interested in him, which usually don't work out. Though what he does beforehand is arguably more impressive. He's presumably able to create items to assist with the preparations of his tricks and is able to conjure up ways to fool others to get what he needs. Also noteworthy how he was able to completely cover the town in graffiti and posters to promote his stunt in the time the PAW Patrol had gotten all deployed. Though despite being decently good at all of that, he pretty much always fails the one thing that he wants to do, the stunt itself. Usually it either ends up going awry or the PAW Patrol prevents him from doing it. Overall, he's able to achieve many villainous acts except the one that is of his interest. Personality-wise, I enjoy how his overconfidence and bravado are shown in quite a humorous way, something other villains don't do that well. Overall, he'll be getting a place in B tier. Here we've got Lucy the Mala. She was the primary antagonist of Valiente, a tracker story, and is PAW Patrol's latest villain. I covered a lot about her character in my review of the special, but I'll recap it here. Her personality was pretty annoying, as she was shown to be a rather obnoxious character. In most of the scenes she appeared in, she was loud and impatient, as well as short-tempered and bossy. Just an unpleasant thing to watch. Then her motives there were extremely confusing. To sum it up, she wanted to make the darkest part of the jungle like daylight so she wouldn't have to sleep, but was shown to frequently fall asleep on herself throughout even when the jungle was all lit up. Capability-wise, she has her Jeep, which actually had mechanical hands that let her destroy the pups' vehicles as well as part the thick jungle foliage. She also has her coatis that do assist her to some extent, but not really with anything she couldn't do on her own. Overall, with an unsavory composure and limited powers, she'll go in D tier. Although she is PAW Patrol's first villain that properly changes her ways, announcing that she wants to be Lucy the Buena at the end of the special. And that wraps us up. Here is the final tier list, with Sweetie and the Copycat being the top villains, both sitting at the S tier. They both have an excellent combination of powers and capabilities paired with personalities and composure. Of course, this all ties in with my opinions a fair bit. Anyways, that's all for this video. If you enjoyed, go check out one of those videos right there, and as always, I'll see you next time.